Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this very important 3-day visit of Gulbuddin Hekmatyar from Afghanistan. He's been the Prime Minister twice during the time of the Taliban there and one of the senior most political leaders now. Now interesting part is that he's going to be in Pakistan for a few days and he's going to meet the Prime Minister, the President. He today met the Foreign Minister also. It was a very useful, I would say, meeting. And now a couple of very important points that we will be discussing in our today's program is about obviously the future of the Afghan peace process, role of Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, because he believes that he can actually bring everybody on the same page. We'll also be talking about the spike in violence in Afghanistan, the recent wave of violence. If you look at it from that aspect, then we'll be talking about the intra-Afghan dialogues. That is also pretty important. And where is it going to lead? And again, use of Afghan soil against Pakistan. As we all know that during the last almost 5-6 days, on one day, about 21 soldiers were martyred. So you can well imagine the kind of influence which is coming from the Afghan side into Pakistan, resulting in such heinous crimes. We'll be throwing light on that aspect also. But about the future Afghan peace process, and there was a very interesting article I read the other day that was about the visit of Abdullah about 3 weeks ago, and the headline was, why there is a rush. The rush is there because after about almost 3-4 weeks there will be elections in United States of America, and people are really worried that whether the Americans are going to continue with the same policy, or what if Donald Trump loses. Is it going to be a U-turn? And then the typical orthodox politics will come into play, and that is obviously going to delay this Afghan peace process, and maybe a certain number might stay back in Afghanistan when it comes to NATO or American forces. To talk about this, we have with us in our studio, let me introduce you to our panelist. On my right is Ambassador Aslam Rizvi Saab, senior diplomat. Sir, thank you very much. And we have with us Dr. Talat Shabir Saab, expert on South Asia. Dr. Saab, thank you very much. For your time as well. Ambassador sir, first of all, sir, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, sir, a 71-year-old, very seasoned politician from the Taliban side. Now he's formed his own political party also. Has served as the Prime Minister twice, a respected name within the ranks of the Taliban, and he strongly believes that under his command and leadership, most of these factions of Taliban will be united, and at least we will be heading towards a proper peace process. Your take, sir?
Well, there is no doubt he is a man of stature, politically important. He has, as you rightly said, Prime Minister twice. He was, of course, the one who fought, one of the warlords who fought against the Soviet occupation. And then when the Americans invaded in 2001, he continued to be fighting the American forces. It was, I think, 2016 recently that he changed tacks and he joined the Taliban and the government, Afghan Ashraf Ghani's government, to take part in the talks in particular. He enjoys good reputation, and his visit follows the others. Abdullah, for example, and before that we also had another Islamic party, the leader of that was visiting us here, and not too far back further was Khalilzad, who came along with the NATO chief, who met the leadership here, including General Bajwa. This is a effort by the all the Afghan leaders to try and bring about a consensus amongst them all for going ahead with the peace talks, which, thanks to the way Pakistan facilitated them. In February there was the first meeting, and it was expected that in March by then we would have started negotiations, but one thing or the other, especially the prisoners exchange issues came up, and now we learned that I think it was in 18 September that since when the talks started, By then, both the representatives of both the government side as well as the Taliban side had the rules and regulations on the framework agreement. Out of the 20, it is believed that they had already agreed, 18 were accepted. 2 are sticking points. I've not been able to quite ascertain exactly what are these 2 sticking points. Perhaps you might be able to throw light on that. But that remains. And still there was, there was a lot of efforts. The people in Afghanistan are very keen on that, as much as we in Pakistan. And although one doubts statements coming from India during the visit of Abdullah that they are equally keen to see peace return and but we know they are amongst the main
spoilers. The new vision. That's what Abdullah said. I remember. Now, sir.
Yes. Well, the main thing is that Abdullah when he came, he was trying to do a very balancing act between Pakistan and because he's trying to get to get a consensus, now a regional consensus on Afghanistan. So there are other spoilers within the country itself, as you know, and now the main issue is that we saw in 2020 the violence and the attacks had considerably reduced, except for the past few weeks. We've seen there's been a big spike on that on both sides. So I think the effort at the moment right now is first we were asking for a ceasefire, but at the moment we're asking for a reduction of the violence and so on to create a climate conducive for discussion to continue.
Yeah, okay. Now, couple of points, Dr. Saab. One is very important, and that is about the diminishing role of India in Afghanistan. Obviously, this is something which they don't want, but obviously, once the Americans would leave, there is going to be a void, most likely filled in by the Russians and the Chinese, and obviously the role of Pakistan is going to be very crucial, very important as well. Let's throw light on that aspect, sir.
First of all, I would like to comment that the visit by Gulbuddin Hikmatyar is a very important development when we see that Pakistan has decided, has opted to engage with various leaders and leaders of various, representing various school of thoughts inside Afghanistan. For example, a couple of weeks back we had Abdullah here, and since our institute hosted his talk, and we know that he is very now become pragmatic in some way, that where he talked of facilitators like Pakistan, he talked of spoilers as well. That means there is a realization inside Afghanistan that there are people who actually spoil the peace process, which is long awaited for people of Afghanistan. Now, when we talk of Gulbuddin Hikmatyar's this visit, so it is a series of visits that Pakistan expects from Afghanistan, and it shows that Pakistan is there to engage with every kind of leadership, and Pakistan will go all out to bring peace in Afghanistan. Like when we talk of spoilers, like you said, India, apparently they were giving good statements when Abdullah was here. But who is this main spoiler in the wake of recent attacks on security forces of Pakistan? And there are interests that India is pursuing inside Afghanistan against Pakistan. So it's going to be a very, very daunting task. I must say the future is not very certain as we talk today. Things will settle, and particularly when I look at 3-4 weeks away, there's an American election, and if Biden wins, then the situation might be little better. But if Trump wins, then situation might get worse. Though there's a promise that they are planning a pullback of forces from Afghanistan, but I'm not sure it is likely to happen anytime soon. Because when you see violence and various other things happening in Afghanistan, they're not in American interest. So the void that is expected to be taking place in Afghanistan is not in like I think a country like Pakistan shouldn't be interested in Americans just leaving Afghanistan soil as it is. So there has to be something in place, very, very.
Now the billion-dollar
solid.
question is, what is that something?
Yeah, there has to be peace.
We have witnessed one withdrawal once the Soviet Union they left, and post that time, I still remember Hillary Clinton on the floor of the House very categorically mentioned that, you know, we left Afghanistan and we did not fill in that void, and that is the reason everything started again, and we had to get back into Afghanistan. But now, sir, don't you think the time has come that one should call a spade and talk about reality, that this is what is going to happen? There is a country without any economy. If there is some sort of an economy that is related to drugs primarily, or warlords, killing, extortion, I mean, this is what Afghanistan is known for. Don't you think this is the time that now the real sectors should be targeted and there should be some economic activity taking place, so that, you know, in the future, at the end of the day, sir, dollars would matter.
Yes.
But Americans are not going to keep giving them $5-10 billion every year, sir.
It's not possible for
It is
them
not
to
possible.
keep. Right. One point I would like to mention is that the leadership in Pakistan has this realization since long, and they were actually pushing this peace process. And if you happen to listen to Abdullah Abdullah, I had sensed that he also realizes, or leadership in Afghanistan largely realizes, that it's high time for them to realize to now ensure that a credible, maintainable peace returns to Afghanistan, and, you know, everything is worked out smoothly. But, you know, when we talk of intra-Afghanistan, you know, the scuffles, or you can say the friction that they have, I think it's a difficult task. But leaving, you know, when we see American troops leaving from Afghanistan with all this in shambles, so I think it will add to more chaos in Afghanistan. So there's, you know, a lot between cup and the lips so far. There's a lot to be done in Afghanistan, and of course, if Afghani leadership has eye on spoilers, so I think it's a good sign that they realize that.
I mean, even if their eyes are closed, they need to open them up. Sir, I remember about 5-6 years ago, Abdullah Abdullah Saab, in his previous government, when he was the chief executive officer, gave an interview to Al Jazeera, in which he mentioned something very different. I mean, what he said was primarily that Pakistan's policy has two ways approach. One is about being the frontline, you know, ally of the Americans, and being, you know, involved in the larger role against the war on terror. On the other hand, he in fact labeled Pakistan as doing something which isn't appropriate, and that is about supporting the Taliban, making them regroup, and, you know, financing them, and so on and so forth. Now, we always believed in one thing, whoever was in the government, Ambassador Saab, there was always one thing in common. Their approach, in fact, always mentioned that there is one solution to the Afghan problem, and that is the political solution. War is itself a problem, it cannot be a solution. So primarily, sir, now it seems that after 20 years or so, everybody, all the stakeholders within Afghanistan or outside Afghanistan, they have realized that at the end of the day, it has to be done through negotiations, through peace process, by involving all the stakeholders, whether they are from the south or the north or the Taliban or whoever, Panjsheris or the Tajiks, or for that matter, the Uzbeks. It seems that now something has been done and they're moving in the right direction. Now there comes the role of the spoilers. On one hand, we really want that violence should come to an end, or at least should get minimized, and at the same time, the major stakeholders should come up, talk, clear their differences, and move forward. But sir, this dirty role of India, you cannot rule that out. It will be there. Ajit Doval's doctrine, Narendra Modi's concept, or for that matter Amit Shah's point of view. I mean, they seem to be on the same page. But that is not the ultimate solution for Afghanistan, because primarily it seems they're only using Afghanistan to take their revenge from Pakistan. I mean, they don't seem to be concerned about the people living there, sir.
Well, through the Indian factor is the strongest factor because, one of the major agreements of this peace agreement would be that the terrorist or militant organizations which are in Afghanistan will not be allowed to attack neighboring countries outside Afghanistan. So, to what extent the Afghan's government or new government will be able to enforce that remains to be seen, because we have, of course, the Al-Qaeda. It is understood that Al-Qaeda has been in touch with the Taliban during the negotiations, and there are indications that they are willing to abide by certain regulations, about 27 odd ones which the Taliban have embarked on. Amongst these, of course, that they have is that all the militants will have identity card. They have to register themselves. They have to be confined to a certain area. They are not to recruit fresh militants. If they are going to move, they have to take a special permission. So these are kind of things, and even with the Taliban, they were discussing with this. With the TTP, they were discussing with this. Now it's to be seen to what extent the TTP will accept it, because they have already rejected that. And to us, that is the main.
All right. So if you allow me, we've been joined in by Lieutenant General Ghulam Mustafa, the senior analyst. General Sahab, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, thank you very much for taking out the time and talking to PTV World. Now, first of all, sir, your take on the visit of Gulbuddin Hikmatyar to Pakistan. I mean, right after when Abdullah Sahab also visited. It seems that the negotiations, they are moving in the right direction. The role of Pakistan has also been well recognized within the ranks of the Afghan government. Your take, sir?
There is no doubt about it. Even the Americans have recognized, the British government has recognized, everybody has recognized that without Pakistan, nobody can stay in Afghanistan for as long as they want to or get out of it. So Pakistan's role is critical. Afghan government also realized there is no point in trying to be antagonist towards Pakistan, and visit of Abdullah and now followed by Hikmatyar is also proving this point that without Pakistan and with Pakistan's total effort, this whole thing is moving in the right direction. Slow, but is getting there. It's going to get there, inshallah.
The second point is, sir, Jalsab, since we believe that rather this was a statement by Mr. Abdullah that let Pakistan go an extra mile, and they have told the Indians to, just keep silent for a while, because whatever we want from Pakistan should be done on ASAP basis. Do you think this is primarily the actual agenda of the government of Afghanistan to utilize Pakistan to its maximum level?
This is the agenda of the United States of America, to get Pakistan into this frame and bring Pakistan to that point from where Pakistan has no space left to maneuver. However, I think our government recognizes this, and our people concerned recognize this kind of a trap, and they're being very, very careful. Number one. Number two, India actually is being squeezed out of this whole game now, and they have had a lot of space to play in, and they were trying to destabilize Pakistan sitting in Afghanistan. Now they find that this base is being squeezed, and they are likely to be totally taken out of this thing. Therefore, they have this problem, and they will continue using all their influences. And we know that Abdullah and his family have been and still are in contact, in business with India. India uses all its nexus and everything that India have to get to where they want to. So game is on, and therefore I think Pakistan understands this, and inshallah Pakistan will play the game according to what Pakistan feels is good for Pakistan.
All right, Jalsab, thank you very much for your comments. Now that's the area, sir, where the Indians, their role was there, is there, and will remain there, because their interest is not in Afghanistan. Their primary interest is to destabilize Pakistan by using the western side. Sir, if they have an approach of that sort, which is very, very clear and we know it, sir, don't you think, sir, that this is the right time to tell the Afghan government, okay, look, this is what is acceptable to us, and this is something which we will not tolerate, and this is something you need to take care of, or we will take care of?
Yes, I think this is undoubtedly must have been discussed during the visits of the CEO Abdullah here in also with Hikmatyar. Because Hikmatyar has already, his son has mentioned the fact that they have yet to have negotiations and talks with the Taliban. They haven't done that as yet, parleys. So they are likely to be discussing this particular thing. Look, yes, the Indians have been, during the earlier period, they have been very active, and they continue to be very active because of the flux right now in Afghanistan. But the moment you have a peace agreement, the Afghans, whichever government, interim government will come from there, they know that the Pakistan is more important to us as a neighbor, and as a gateway to the Central Asia and so on for trade and so many things. So I think you will see a diminishing role of India once the peace agreement comes into force. And I think some of the earliest signs of this you will see will be the reduction of the various consulates that they are all over Afghanistan. So I don't want to put too much kind of emphasis on the Indians' influence to sabotage. Yes, they will continue to do so, but then there are other issues within the negotiation that have to be considered. For example, the constitution. What will be the nature of the government? Will it be a republic? Will it be the Islamic Emirate? Then there is the human rights issues, there are the women's issues. There are a number of these things which there has to be sorted out within the Taliban and present government.
It's not a simple procedure. It's a very complicated story.
Complicated, indeed. So they have to sort of gradually go towards that. And then lastly, I think it's important that I should mention that the National Security Advisor of America has removed some confusion about the withdrawal of the troops and so on. At the moment, of course, they are about 8,000. They say that by 3rd November, they expect 4,500 or 4,000. And the beginning of next year, they think they will leave behind 2,500. So the statement made by President Trump that they want to withdraw everybody by Christmas, he says that is what he expects as a hope. But
or maybe that's a statement for the
not possible.
For the purpose of politics.
It's not possible. But these are the issues that need to be ironed out. These are more pressing issues because the spoilers will automatically, once the a clear picture emerges, a framework agreement is there. But then I think one of the two issues that we are talking about perhaps was the peace. They want the ceasefire should be there now. But the Taliban insists that there should be a political agreement in the first place because an agreement must precede a ceasefire. That is the general practice and so on. And then, of course, there are other equally important issues. Like, for example, the Afghan National Army. Will they be, and some other militants, will they be demilitarized? Will they be they'll be absorbed and so on? And, the Taliban have also indicated that they will give citizenship to some of the militants, more like a Dayton Accord for Bosnia and so on. So there are many things to be considered still. And,
so it's not that simple. It's not going to be too quick. It will take time.
Yes, but I may just add that initially it was thought, like I said, February, March, things will be there. Now Khalilzada, he was mentioning the fact it's not going to take years. It's going to take months to have an accord and to have a peace.
So we've been hearing it for such a long time now. I still remember 2017
Yes.
was the date once given by the former president Barack Obama
Yes.
that we'll be leaving. So nothing happened. 2018, 19. This is almost the end of 2020. Now, so a couple of points. First one is about two different approaches. Number one, when we hear when Abdullah was in Pakistan and he was leaving, before he left Pakistan, he in fact really appreciated the role of Indians being here in Pakistan, and he said that, well, I think they have done a remarkable job and we would like to engage them and we would like their support to be there for us. Makes sense for any country. Again, do you think the Afghan government or these particular leaders will be able to create a proper equilibrium, a balanced approach between India and Pakistan, sir? Because India is not their neighbor, remember. Pakistan is their neighbor. Whether you talk about the intra-Afghan trade, Afghan transit trade, bilateral trade, I mean, Afghanistan is a landlocked city, totally dependent on Pakistan or maybe Iran to some extent, but not on India. So how will this entire issue fizzle out or could create some sort of a breathing space for all the major key holders here?
Right. I think when we talk of India, we must know that India has made consistent investment in inside Afghanistan for the last 18 years. Since after 9/11, they got engaged inside Afghanistan, and not only they have invested in in various projects, they have invested in human resource also. For instance, in 2016, 2015, there were about 1,000 scholarships per annum that they were awarded to Afghan students in India. So now they have prepared a whole lot of Afghanis who actually think good of India, and it's not very easy to disengage from them. Or why should they? They have to keep their interests, and they have to keep India also maybe on board. But will India give up? In my opinion, India will not give up
Never.
easily. Even if they decide to give up, they will never give up easily because they have made investment. They won't have their investment go waste. One. Second, what conditions we are putting on Indians with regard to peace process? That if you during this peace process or this peace process requires you to behave yourself, and you don't have to carry out activities in Afghanistan, inside Pakistan, in Balochistan or KP. So are we engaging with the Afghans to sort out this problem that we face because of a lot of Indian presence in Afghanistan? So there are complex issues related to this Indian factor inside Afghanistan. So in my assessment, it's not very easy that we just tackle this issue by telling. Of course, the way Abdullah said on a couple of occasions during his visit to Pakistan, it's not very easy to disengage with Indians. They have stakes there, and now how can we move forward? Or the dispensation that peace process is actually looking at, which comes up in Afghanistan in the wake of this peace process, power sharing formula, who comes up and who takes over Afghanistan, who are the decision makers. This is very important in Afghanistan. It's not going to be very, very easy. It's not going to be very smooth with regard to Afghanistan when it comes
it's
to
a tribal society with so many warlords in place, so many provinces, very different from each other, and then there is a government not recognized by one party, and then whenever you hold elections there, so even if you lose, you end up getting something.
Yes.
This is what we have witnessed not once, twice. Abdullah lost the elections twice. Once he was the CEO, now he's been made the head of the High Council. Primarily, sir, then there has to be someone who is supporting Abdullah. Somebody's really telling him that your role is going to be there.
Yes.
Whether Ashraf Ghani becomes the president or whether he loses the election or whatever happens, but role of Abdullah, because he's very close to the Indians, and it's a fact that now he is in fact following a different tone, but otherwise he has always been very, very venomous against Pakistan.
Yes. And one thing more, when you say it's difficult to reach a formula between the people who actually contest elections, like Abdullah didn't agree with the result of the election twice. So how come it will become so smooth when there are a couple of other stakeholders coming up in the wake of this peace process? Taliban, they had very strong, and the violence. Why this violence taking place? In my assessment, violence is taking place because Taliban actually want to have a good deal. So the violence
They
is
want
very
to talk from a position of strength.
Yes, and of course, I think the position of strength that Taliban will be talking will be better position than from Ashraf Ghani or Abdullah in times to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You see the role of the Taliban increasing in the future inside
Yes, of course,
Afghanistan?
because the power sharing formula that the people are looking at, or we the facilitators are looking at, is something that satisfies everyone in Afghanistan, all stakeholders in Afghanistan. You can't keep happy everyone in Afghanistan. It's going to be very daunting task, and I think it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very complex, and when we talk of American withdrawal, and it will become even more complex when you withdraw in the face
Leave
of a country.
leave the open space.
Yeah, you can't do that. So it's very complex. It's very uncertain and very complex. I see a chaotic Afghanistan in times to come. Maybe we wish to have peaceful
Sir,
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan has seen the civil war for a very long time, without yielding any results, killing, and that's it. And when you talk about the future of the Afghan youth, sir, honestly speaking, there isn't much hope. There is hope, but there isn't enough hope. Whether you talk about education or you talk about the young Taliban who are ready to be recruited, at the end of the day, sir, you need some money to live. And there is no economy as such over there. And if you are a part of any warlord, you're part of that group, yes, you can exert your pressure and you can carry on. But sir, having jobs, number one thing is about peace. Peace would lead to everything. But sir, peace is the first and the foremost important area, and unfortunately, that is where the problem seems to be. Now, the RAW as well as the NDS, we all know their connection, the kind of involvement they have, and the kind of approach they have for Pakistan. I mean, yes, Mr. Abdullah can come and deliver a speech and making Pakistanis very happy, or Mr. XYZ comes from there. But the reality is there. There is a lot of hatred for the Pakistanis. Look at the Indian media, the kind of influence they have there. You talk about Indian movies played in Afghan cinema halls, not Pakistani, by the way. So then there was a time that only Pashto movies used to be, shown there, and those Pashto movies they were all from Pakistan. But Badr Munir used to be a very, very known hero there. Things are different now, sir. Realities have changed. Times have changed. Do you think the approach needs to be changed as well, sir? Because we have been too sweet, don't you think?
Well, in the recent times, India and Afghanistan have had good relations. They continue to have good relations. And with Pakistan, as you know, we've had ups and downs. And a lot of that was because of the lack of trust between the two countries. But of late, Pakistan is trying to bridge this mistrust that we have between the two sides. And 2018, I think, is when we had this Afghan-Pakistan action plan for peace and solidarity, which has met a couple of times already, which encompasses political, diplomatic, military, economic, cultural relations, and as using this excellent forum, we are moving forward, trying to improve our relations from there, bring around trust. And the fact is that Abdullah himself, well, he was here, acknowledged that what is happening. And, more recently, only a few days ago, we have tried to facilitate the people-to-people contact. The visa restrictions have been relaxed considerably. Visas for people going for medical cares, etc., can get it on the spot, etc. So yes, there have been differences in the past, but I think if I hope I am correct, that in Afghanistan, if you recall, there was one time a movement of young people walking all the way across the country, asking for a ceasefire and end of this thing and so on. So there is a groundswell now of people being fed up of the war and wanting to have peace and prosperity.
All they have seen, sir, is war. At least this is the third or maybe the fourth generation primarily that is seeing war.
So Abdullah, yes, he's had a bias. His family is, of course, in Delhi. Is still in Delhi, raised from there. But then again, At the same time, he counterbalances the Taliban pro-Pakistan. So if he comes out to be a strong man from there, he will want
Sir,
to
he
do.
always had issues with Pakistan and the
Yes,
Taliban.
yes,
The man
but-
from Panjshir always had this problem. Once Ahmad Shah Massoud
Yes.
was killed before 9/11, a few days before 9/11 took place. I remember he was so close to him, and they always were inclined towards India, and Pakistan always supported the Taliban. So that narrative was there, sir. It cannot change over time,
but
especially when you talk about the Afghan leader who has been somebody who's always hated Pakistan, always tried to malign Pakistan, and suddenly one fine morning, it's not a movie that he'll wake up and he'll be a good brother of Pakistan.
This is.
I don't think this brother and Baradari Islami and it really doesn't exist anymore, sir.
Things have
It's
changed.
your own
I mean,
selfish
it's not-
personal interest,
not-
so it matters
The situation is not the same in Afghanistan it was during the initial days and so on. So I think as a leader, I mean, he knows that Pakistan, if they try and lean towards Afghanistan to India, Pakistan can become a spoiler, and Afghanistan has no future without the cooperation and support and encouragement from Afghanistan getting the support from Pakistan. So whichever leadership will come there knows the importance of Pakistan, definitely. And our Prime Minister has always been saying peace, dialogue is the way forward and so forth. Situation was quite different before because we were looked upon, we were sending Taliban, etc. Now the problem that lies here is what will be the kind of relationship between the Taliban and the TTP. TTP obviously will not be able to come to Pakistan because we've cleared the areas. If they splinter groups here and there, they will weaken themselves. But the danger lies that despite the efforts of the Afghan new government which will come, the Indians will be able to use the proxy of the TTP to continue to do what they're doing in Pakistan and Balochistan and so on, and try and bring about that same mistrust that accusing our relationship, making it worse between Afghanistan and Pakistan. That is an area that we have to watch, and for that the intelligence sharing we had already started and so on, military to military cooperation. That
So
will
what
need to be
intelligence
stepped
sharing?
up.
I mean, the NDS is working with the RAW. And how can we trust them? How can they trust us? Because there's an absolute conflict of interest here, sir. I mean, even for example, if I'm somebody from my side, let's suppose, and I have been told I will never trust them, and they would never trust me.
The conflict, the interest for the Afghans, if you look at it in a larger picture, is to be able to use the mineral resources, to use their position for trade, etc., and to know that China is very much a part of helpful to Pakistan. So it is in their interest to align with Pakistan, and China and Russia, of course, is also pro. They have held talks and so forth. And Iran on the next door as well is supportive and so on. So I think this movement that you are saying of these leaders going around and discussing from there, I mean, they are things you have to look at it. It's not the same Afghanistan. If there is a right thinking from there, you can see that there is an opportunity. It's a golden opportunity that they should not allow to go away. And pivotal role
This time is not going to
remains
come
for
again.
Pakistan.
They have to realize this also.
Pivotal role of Pakistan will remain.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple of questions, in fact, and I guess we're running out of time also, but quick comments. Dr. Mohit Yusuf, in an interview with Karan Thapar, in fact, very categorically mentioned that about $10 million have been given to Daesh and TTP to carry out all these notorious activities inside Pakistan. And they are, I would say, they're doing a good job from their perspective. But sir, at the same time, if you remember, when Pakistan was trying to sort of bring in peace in KP and Balochistan and a couple of other areas, and we were also trying to keep a balance with the Afghan Taliban, primarily with the groups like the known groups. We have always been told by the Americans to go after them, and we managed Haqqani primarily. Now, do you think, sir, we've been able to carry out a good job by balancing that and still buying time? Because we knew that eventually this is what the future is all about.
The problem with regard to Afghanistan is that there's a lack of trust, and Americans are not trusting Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't trust Americans. somebody accusing us of playing double game. India is playing its role. There's a lot of mess that we need to see before we talk of something good coming up in Afghanistan. You see, when we talk of peace in Afghanistan, all stakeholders have to realize, have to admit that Pakistan's position in this peace process is indispensable. It's not happening without Pakistan. If Pakistan is indispensable in this peace process, if Pakistan has to do it for you, so you have to come up with a formula that Pakistan's interests are also looked after in this peace process. If Indians continue to harm Pakistan's interest inside Pakistan and inside Afghanistan, and if Americans are not trusting Pakistan, and it is like I agree with you, there's no intelligence sharing because we are not friends, in that ideal sense. We are not friends in that ideal sense. So we need to leave past behind. If we don't leave past behind, there is going to be no solution for this problem. These misgivings will continue to occur. These misgivings will continue to be spoilers. One time if India spoils the whole thing for us,
not only once, so many times.
Yes, so many. Yeah, and it won't be possible unless we leave all of the Afghan peace process, leave past behind, and take fresh start.
As Abdullah, that we do now, sir, last 30-second comment for each of you, sir, because this is an important question, and that is about the future of Kashmir. Do you think, sir, if peace prevails in Afghanistan, there is a probability that most of these non-state Muslim actors, I would say, could look towards Kashmir, sir? And that is what the Indians do not want.
Yeah, well, I think neither do the Kashmiris, because the role of the militants have harmed the cause much more than anything else. Although there have been statements coming from Afghanistan by some of the militants, I think maybe the TTP itself had also said that.
It wasn't TTP, it was the Afghan Taliban.
I beg your pardon?
It was Afghan Taliban.
Exactly. They had made this statement. So I think the movement there. Otherwise, this will give the Indians and the West leeway. Look, these are the terrorists and so forth.
A reason,
yeah. Their cause from there. No, I think the movement is there. The movement it's a genuine movement. It's a very righteous movement that is taking place. It's should not be in flux with no militants, and these Taliban and the others should be going there for their cause, and they have openly said so. Some of the leadership in Kashmiris have said so.
Yeah, I agree with Ambassador Saab that if these militants turn to Kashmir, they will actually spoil the Kashmir cause. It is not going to help.
So when we talk about the political support, the moral support, and the diplomatic support, now people are talking about the physical support.
Yes. But I think there's a time. I think there's about time that they need a physical support too. But it's very important juncture that we with regard to Kashmir issue, that we need to be very, very cautious. We don't have to spoil their struggle. And if militancy takes place, then I think.
But
this
sir,
will
if
take
India is
turn.
Playing without any rules, I think they have a right to. But anyway, that's another long debate. I think we should do a program on that also. Okay. But anyway, Dr. Saab, it was a pleasure having you. Ambassador, thank you so much for your time. And that's all we have for this. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.